You really hate me, Phil Resch said. I see a pattern. The way you killed Garland and Luba. You don't kill the way I do. You like to kill. All you need is a pretext. If you had a pretext, you'd kill me. As he and Resch walked back to the opera house, Resch said, I'll give you my laser tube now, so you won't have to worry about my reaction to the test, in terms of your own personal safety. He held out the tube and Rick accepted it. They ascended to the roof of the War Memorial Opera House and Phil Resch's parked hover car. Opening his briefcase, Rick fished out his test gear. Elaborate, Phil Resch observed, watching. Rick handed the adhesive pad to Phil Resch. Attach that to your cheek, firmly, and this light stays focused on your eye. Don't move. Keep your eyeball as steady as you can. Afterward, Rick sat in silence for a time. Then he began gathering his gear together, stuffing it back into the briefcase. I can tell by your face, Phil Resch said. He exhaled in absolute weightless, almost convulsive relief. Okay, you can give my gun back. Evidently you were right, Rick said, about Garland's motives, wanting to split us up. Do you have your ideology framed that would explain me as part of the human race? There is a defect in your empathic role-taking ability, Rick said. One which we don't test for. Your feelings towards androids. Of course we don't test for that, Phil Resch said. Maybe we should. He had never thought of it before, had never felt any empathy of his own toward the androids he killed. Yet, in contrast to Phil Resch, a difference had manifested itself, and he felt instinctively that he was right. Empathy toward an artificial construct, he asked himself, something that only pretends to be alive? But Luba Luft had seemed genuinely alive. You realize, Phil Resch said quietly, what this would do. If we include androids in our range of empathic identification as we do animals, we couldn't protect ourselves. Absolutely. These Nexus 6 types, they'd roll all over us. He ceased, noticing that Rick was again hauling out his test gear. I thought the test was over. I want to ask myself a question, Rick said, and I want you to tell me what the needles register. Just give me the calibration. I can compute it myself. He plastered the adhesive disc against his cheek, arranged the beam of light until it fed directly into his eye. Are you ready? Watch the dials. We'll exclude time-lapse in this. I just want magnitude. Sure, Rick. Aloud, Rick said. I'm going down by elevator with an android I've captured, and suddenly someone kills it, without warning. No particular response, Phil Resch said. What'd the needles hit? The left one 2.8, the right one 3.3. A female android, Rick said. Now they're up to 4.0 and 6 respectively. That's high enough. Rick removed the disc and shut off the beam of light. That's an empathically empathic response, he said. About what a human subject shows for most questions, except for the extreme ones. Meaning? I'm capable of feeling empathy for at least specific, certain androids. Not all of them, but one or two. For Luba Luft, as an example, he said to himself. So I was wrong. There's nothing unnatural or unhuman about Phil Resch's reactions. It's me. You're in a spot, Deckard, Phil Resch said. It's sex. Sex? Because she, it, was physically attractive. Hasn't that ever happened to you before? We were taught that it constitutes a prime problem in bounty hunting. Don't you know, Deckard, that in the colonies they have android mistresses? It's illegal, Rick said. Sure, it's illegal. Most variations in sex are illegal. But people do it anyhow. Wake up, Deckard. You wanted to go to bed with a female android. Nothing more, nothing less. I felt that way, on one occasion, when I had just started bounty hunting. Don't let it get you down. You'll heal. What's happened is that you've got your order reversed. Don't kill her, or be present when she's killed, and then feel physically attracted. Do it the other way. Rick stared at him. Go to bed with her first, and then kill her, Phil Resch said. Like an arc of pure fire, John R. Isidore soared across the late afternoon sky on his way home from his job. I wonder if she's still there, he said to himself. He had already stopped off at the Black Market grocery. On the seat beside him, A bag of such delicacies as bean curd, ripe peaches, good, soft, evil-smelling cheese rocked back and forth. All rarities for which he had squandered 2 weeks' salary, borrowed in advance from Mr. Sloat. And, in addition, a bottle of Chablis wine, the greatest rarity of all. Presently, he stood in front of Pris Stratton's door, rapping with the edge of the wine bottle, his heart going to pieces inside his chest.
Who's there?
This is J.R. Isidore speaking. I have a few desirable items here, and I think we could put together a more than reasonable dinner if you could let me in. She held the door open wide enough for him to enter, and then, seeing what he carried, her face ignited with elfin, exuberant glee. But almost at once, the glee was gone. "What is it?" he said. He carried the packages to the kitchen, set them down, and hurried back.
They're wasted on me.
Why?
Oh, sometime I'll tell you.
She raised her eyes, and then...
It was nice of you anyhow. Now I'd wish you'd leave. I don't feel like seeing anyone.
I know what's the matter with you. You don't have any friends. You're a lot worse than when I saw you this morning. It's because...
I have friends. Or I had. 7 of them. But the bounty hunters had time to get to work, so maybe you're right.
What's a bounty hunter?
That's right. You people aren't supposed to know. A bounty hunter is a professional murderer who's given a list of those he's supposed to kill. He's paid a sum for each he gets.
And they're after you? No wonder you're scared and don't want to see anybody. But he thought, it must be a delusion. She must be psychotic. Maybe she's a special. I'll get them first, he said.
With what?
I'll get a license to carry a laser beam. It's easy to get out here where there's hardly anybody.
That's very nice of you. But if bounty hunters got the others, got Max Polikoff and Garland and Luba and Roy Batty, Roy and Irmgard Batty, if they're dead, then it really doesn't matter. They're my best friends. Why the hell don't I hear from them, I wonder?
Making his way into the kitchen, he got down dusty, long, unused plates and bowls and glasses. He began washing them in the sink. Presently, Pris appeared. He uncorked the Chablis, divided the peaches and the cheese and the bean curd.
What's the white stuff, not the cheese?
It's made from soybean whey. I wish I had some... He broke off, flushing. It used to be eaten with beef gravy.
An android.
Pris murmured.
That's the sort of slip an android makes. That's what gives it away.
She came over, stood beside him, and then, to his stunned surprise, put her arm around his waist.
I'll try a slice of peach,
she said, and gingerly picked up a slippery slice with her long fingers. And then, as she ate, she began to cry.
God damn it. Well, see, we lived on Mars. That's how come I know androids.
And the only people on Earth that you know, Isidore said, are your fellow ex-immigrants.
We knew each other before the trip. A settlement near New York. Roy, Batty, and Irmgard ran a drugstore. He was a pharmacist and she handled the beauty aids, the creams and ointments. On Mars, they use a lot of skin conditioners. I got various drugs from Roy. I needed them at the time because... Well, anyhow, it's an awful place.
She swept in the room, the apartment, in one violent gesture.
This is nothing. You think I'm suffering because I'm lonely? Hell, all Mars is lonely, much worse than this.
Don't the androids keep you company? I heard a commercial on... Seating himself, he ate, and presently she picked up the glass of wine. She sipped, expressionlessly.
The androids,
she said,
are lonely too. We came back because nobody should have to live there. It wasn't conceived for habitation, at least not within the last billion years. It's so old. You feel it in the stones, the terrible old age.
A knock sounded on the hall door.
I can't go,
Pris whispered.
I wonder if the door's locked. God, I hope so.
A far-off voice from the hall called, Pris, are you in there? It's Roy and Irmgard. We got your card. Rising and going into the bedroom, Pris reappeared carrying a pen and a scrap of paper. She scratched out a hasty message. You go to the door. Isidore nervously took the pen from her and wrote, And say what? With anger, Pris scratched out, See if it's really them. Getting up, he walked glumly into the living room. How would I know it was them? He inquired of himself. He opened the door. Two people stood in the dim hall, a small woman lovely in the manner of Greta Garbo, with blue eyes and yellow blonde hair. The man, larger, with intelligent eyes but flat Mongolian features which gave him a brutal look.
We're looking...
The woman began, but then she saw past Isidore. Her face dissolved in rapture, and she whisked past him, calling,
Pres, how are you?
Isidore turned. The two women were embracing. He stepped aside, and Roy Batty entered, somber and large, smiling his crooked, tuneless smile.